Good morning. I'm Pauline Verzosa. It is Tuesday, the 26th of May, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. And now first on the agenda, the Supreme Court has released its resolution making official the junking of Senator Bato de la Rosa's petition for a temporary restraining order on his ICC arrest warrant. More details in this report.
Grace Nancy de la Rosa, the wife of Senator Bato, has made an appeal to the judiciary, and that is to keep her husband, senator, in the country and have him face a local court instead of allowing him to be flown to The Hague. Mrs. de la Rosa implored the High Tribunal on social media. There, she said that permitting the surrender of another Filipino citizen to the International Criminal Court after former President Rodrigo Duterte would be tantamount to admitting to an incapability to handle Bato's case. Nancy called on SC justices to make a quick and conclusive decision regarding de la Rosa's arrest warrant issued by the ICC, and even compared the situation of her husband to that of their Tatay Digong. She said lessons should be learned from what she called the Duterte case. She asserted that unlike these days, when Filipinos are being forcibly turned over overseas, Duterte, while president, had gone to great lengths to bring all Filipinos overseas home, including convicts. On May 21, the Supreme Court refused to issue a temporary restraining order as requested in Senator de la Rosa's petition seeking to bar the enforcement of the ICC arrest against him. Upon studying both arguments from the petitioner and the Office of the Solicitor General, the High Court ruled de la Rosa's camp had not been able to identify his particular rights, threatened and needing protection. A day after the S's ruling, the Marcos government ordered law enforcement to proceed with the implementation of the ICC warrant. Until now, the Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation are still pursuing the senator since he went into hiding again after May 14. NBI Chief Melvin Matibag now considers Bato to be quote armed and dangerous under existing NBI protocols. The former Duterte PNP chief is also now considered by authorities as a fugitive from justice. But De La Rosa's lawyer Israelito Torion clapped back at Matibag's assumption, saying there is no basis to consider his client a threat.
Before a person can be declared a fugitive from justice, number one requirement is that there is a Philippine court warrant of arrest or there is a court conviction Philippine court. The fact that this is an internal court, this is a case of first impression. So therefore, the concept of fugitive from justice does not apply.
On Monday, May 25, Matibag said the NBI is planning to write a formal letter to the PNP to cancel the licenses for firearms registered to De La Rosa. Matibag said based on their investigation, the ICC wanted senators owns several firearms, all with address in Davao. Meantime, the Mayors for Good Governance slammed De La Rosa's 7-month absence from the Senate while still allegedly receiving his salary. De La Rosa had been skipping sessions since November 2025 before appearing for a day or two this May at the upper chamber. And for GG compared De La Rosa to most Filipino workers who are under a no-work, no-pay rule. Only if an ordinary employee went absent for weeks or months, he would already be suspended or even terminated.
Now, the Philippine National Police is currently reviewing the firearms registered under Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. In an interview with The Big Story, Public Information Office Chief Colonel Alan Rayco said a board under the Civil Security Group is assessing whether Senator de la Rosa's firearm licenses should be revoked. Co emphasized that the PNP remains committed to enforcing the law fairly and impartially. He added that authorities will carry out their mandate regardless of whether the individual involved is a former chief of the National Police Force.
I can assure you na meron pong mga registered firearms talaga kay Senator Bato. And as to the license po niya, the board under the CSG, yung pong firearms license revocation and restoration board, ay already convening to look into yung of the reputation po ng license niya. We are mandated to do our duty, and the Chief PNP has already issued his guidance and his instructions for all PNP units to actively look for and apprehend Senator De La Rosa when found. Kumbaga mangyayari lang immediately you could be apprehended for possessing said firearms since it's already been declared as unlicensed, and you are mandated to surrender yung said firearm. That's the only thing. But physically, does not affect the firearms, of course. It can still be fired, it can still be used.
And now in other news, the Senate has released new committee assignments following a leadership shakeup. And the developments also came amid fresh criticism against the Cayetano siblings and heated exchanges over alleged charter change discussions. Here's that report.
The Senate has released more committee lineups following the leadership shakeup that installed Alan Peter Cayetano as Senate President. Senator Jingo Estrada and Rodante Marcoleta were named vice chairpersons of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. Marcoleta was also appointed vice chairperson of the Senate Energy Committee, with Senators Bongo Robin Padilla, Estrada, Amy Marcos, and Joel Villanueva serving as members. The Finance and National Defense Peace Unification and Reconciliation Committees will include all senators except the Senate President and those serving in ex officio capacities. Estrada and Mark Villar were also named members of the Youth Committee. Meanwhile, Camille Villar was appointed vice chairperson of the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation and Future Thinking, alongside members Mark Villar, Padilla, and Villanueva. Under the Ways and Means Committee, Senator Go, Escudero, Estrada, Marcoleta, Marcos, Camille Villar, and Villanueva were likewise named members. At the same time, criticisms against the Cayetano siblings continued to surface. Katrina Ponce Enrile slammed Senator Pia Cayetano over her emotional "Kumusta" statement on the Senate floor. In a statement, the daughter of former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile said Cayetano's attempt to ease public anger did not appear genuine. Katrina added that some moments call for silence, restraint, and humility rather than explanations. In a statement, Pablo Virgilio Cardinal David criticized Alan Peter Cayetano over his remarks describing the bloody drug war as a human rights and pro-life campaign. David said such statements disregard the victims, including widows and orphans of those killed without due process. Meanwhile, minority senators also took aim at Amy Marcos. In a privileged speech, Marcos spoke of alleged discussions involving minority senators on charter change, possible term extensions, and even no election scenarios. Senator Mig Zubiri immediately moved to strike Marcos's video presentation from the official records, calling it propaganda. Senator Tito Soto seconded the motion and said that, while he and House Speaker Boji D are golfmates, they never discussed charter change.
Naba, may panindigan po kami lahat dito, Madam President. So therefore, you can see my passion on this. I move to strike that, the horrible propaganda video.
I really take offense. I take exception to what was presented. But I don't care about what the other mention or the other things that were mentioned. But as far as the issue of my involvement in Chacha is concerned, I vehemently deny. Definitely, I have nothing to do with that. And I second the motion of Senator Subiri that the editorial video should be stricken off the record.
Meanwhile, the ombudsman is moving to bar Senator Rodante Marcoleta, former lawmaker Mike Defensor, and two others from leaving the country. The office asked the Sandigan Bayan to issue precautionary whole departure orders over alleged plunder and bribery findings linked to Marcoleta's campaign donations. Also covered by the request are Joseph Espiritu and Aristotel Viray. Ombudsman investigators recommended the indictment of the four for plunder and violation of the law, barring public officials from receiving gifts. They also recommended an indirect bribery charge against Marcoleta. Investigators allege Marcoleta received 75 million pesos in donations from Defensor, Espiritu, and Viray in January 2025. And the amount exceeds the 50 million peso threshold under the plunder law, according to investigators. Don't go away. We will be back with more stories right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. A House impeachment spokesman is calling for a united fight against fake news ahead of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial. Lanao del Sur Representative Zia Adyong says disinformation and propaganda could distort public understanding of the proceedings. Adyong added that the House prosecution panel expects more online attacks and misleading narratives once the trial begins. He says the prosecution team will hold regular briefings and use different platforms to give the public accurate information. Adyong also urged Filipinos to help fact-check claims and to protect the integrity of the impeachment process. Joining us this morning is Lanao del Sur Representative Z. Alonto Adyong, one of the spokespersons of the House Impeachment Prosecution Panel. Good morning, Congressman, and thank you for joining us again here on Morning Matters.
My pleasure, Pauline. Good morning to you and to your viewers.
All right. Well, first of all, Congressman, how ready is the House Prosecution Panel for the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte?
Well, we're 150% ready. The House prosecution team is looking forward to the day when they can actually present their evidences.
Well, Congressman, the OVP has a deadline to file its answer to the articles of impeachment on June 1. And after that, the House Prosecution Panel is supposed to submit its reply as well. Is the panel prepared to submit it immediately, or will you be maximizing the 5-day period given?
Well, depends on the comments of the Vice President. If it's lengthy, definitely the House prosecution team would also assess and then analyze the points that will be raised and the comments of the Vice President, and definitely the response of the House prosecution team would also be in compliance to the comments. I mean, not in compliance, but in response, direct response to the comments that would be raised by the Vice President. So it depends. No? It depends. It depends on how the comments are going to be framed by the Vice President.
Kong, does the Vice President have the option not to respond, not to file her answers to the articles of impeachment? And if she chooses not to file one, how will that affect the strategy of the House Prosecution Panel moving forward?
I think that would be to the disadvantage of the defense should they decide not to respond, or at least not to be compliant with the directive of the court. I presume that there will be a sort of a response or a comment in compliance with the court order, comment on the articles of impeachment. So basically, what we are actually what the House prosecution team now, insofar as the 5-day non-extendable days given to them to respond to the comments, is basically premised on how the Vice President or the defense will be raising their comments on these articles.
And Congressman, the pre-trial is reportedly scheduled already for June 15. What are the most important things the prosecution panel wants to accomplish during this stage?
Well, first, there will be the pre-trial polling, no? So there will be the presentation of evidences that will be marked, and there will also be for the House prosecution team to present their potential witnesses. So they're actually preparing for that, and not only preparing for the pre-trial, but they're also excited and looking forward for them to actually be able to start showing this to the public, not only to the senator judges, but to the public in general.
Now, you said, Congressman, that the prosecution panel here really wants to present all available evidence and witnesses. But are you confident that the Senate Impeachment Court will allow the House to fully lay out its case in this trial?
Well, we are confident of the degree and how convincing our evidences are, and we also assume that the Senate, being sitting as a the Senate sitting as an impeachment court, would also be would also be aware of the obligation and the task that the Constitution mandates them to perform, which is basically to sit as judges, and we expect the senator judges to perform exactly that, meaning they have to assume impartiality and to have an open mind when it comes to appreciating and welcoming evidences. So ultimately, sinasabi naman na talaga natin that in impeachment trial, it's not only the senator judges who are directly involved in assessing, in evaluating the evidences or the testimonies of the witnesses, but the general public, the Filipino people, will also be judging uh, the trial itself, meaning how the senator judges would approach and would also decide based on whatever is being presented in the trial. So that is actually what we are hoping to to achieve by encouraging the public to be to engage in the public discourse, to witness and watch, and be updated with the proceedings, and get themselves in the straight information, accurate information straight from the and in the court.
Well, you personally, Congressman, you are calling for a united fight against fake news and disinformation, even ahead of this trial. Why are you anticipating? How important is it to fight and combat disinformation?
Well, this impeachment trial is historic. We know that. The people have been longing to finally see the actual trial to happen, and this is now happening. No? The problem with fake news and disinformation is actually, as we have seen in recent days, it's actually created a parallel universe where the discourse now do not even premised on facts, but it's entirely based on personal opinions. That there's no way for the facts to thrive and even to discuss about how to arrive into to a informed conclusion. So the result of all this fake news actually created a parallel universe where where it actually does not only jive with truth and facts, but we see that it purposely created to destroy truth and facts. So that is why we are actually calling and appealing to all to everyone, no? To all the Filipino public, because we're talking of here accountability in the Constitution. We are talking about holding a certain a certain standard for our public officers. That a public office is a public trust, and we need really to be able to have and allow access to of information, truthful information to the public, so that they can actually engage in the national discourse that would be not only beneficial to either of it would be beneficial to how the Senate will be able to restore their trust and the dignity that they have once enjoyed, but it's actually good for the country to move forward in terms of the issue of accountability, the issue of restoring trust and dignity to our government institutions. So that is why we are also calling them, because appealing to them to fact checks whenever disinformation come out on social media and in whatever platforms, because this is actually the Constitution that we need to protect, and the sanctity of the impeachment trial that we also need to protect. And so we are all, in this case, stakeholders. We are not actually discussing not just the merits of the case, but we're also discussing how we can set standard for our public officers, those who are attempting or presenting themselves, leaders of this country in the coming years.
Well, Congressman, earlier you mentioned that the House prosecution panel is 150% ready for this impeachment trial of VP Sara Duterte. So let's talk more about your preparations. The House prosecution panel has reportedly been conducting mock trials the past few days. Tell us, Kong, how have those preparations been going and what lessons have emerged from those simulations?
Well, we are trying to equip our House prosecution panel with, how the court actually, the trial, proper trial in the proper court happens. No? So many of them naman are practicing lawyers before their assumption, before their election to the office as members of this House, of the House. And so, as part of our preparation, we also come out with with a way by which private prosecutors can also be assessed and be involved in the actual, assigning of the articles per members of the prosecution team. So that's how we are actually laying out the possibility of, not only how do we present actual evidences, but what strategies and approaches would we actually utilize in order for not only the senator judges to be able to clearly understand, but as well as for the public to easily digest presentation of these evidences. Again, we are focused on, facts and truthful information, meaning to say we will only be dealing with the actual allegations in relation to how we present them in the form of evidences or either testimonies without much theatrics. No, we want to present this as factual, as simple as possible, so that our kababayan, ordinary, average-minded Filipino, will be able to understand it effectively.
We were actually speaking to Congressman Shell Diokno also last night on the Big Story, Kong, and he told us the same thing, I know, that the prosecution panel wants to focus strictly on the evidence, on the facts. There will be no grandstanding, no theatrics here. But my question is, Congressman, how do you plan to maintain that kind of strategy, especially because a lot of people are expecting this trial to be highly political and highly emotional?
Well, we will always go back to our, basic, basic role, and confine with ourselves in the way the House prosecution team will be able to display this evidence is based on the understanding that this is our constitutional duty. And so, by way of presenting these evidences, the end objective of this is to show to the public that these allegations that the Vice President indeed has committed certain violations, certain illegal acts that constitute impeachable offenses. And for us to be able to, get confined with this very purpose and objective of House prosecution, is not to really bother and not get twined with whatever are the results of the trial insofar as the national discourse is concerned. Meaning, we understand that there will be some sections in our society that would be opposed to whatever evidences, not only opposed but even present a parallel reality, just to not only attack the presentation of the prosecution team, but to cast doubts in its entirety on the process itself. So that's actually how we would expect the proceeding would go as far as the presentation or the strategy of the House prosecution panel is concerned. They will be focused on facts, displaying and showing to the public and to the senator judges the evidences, without necessarily getting themselves involved in how the effects of the trial on the public discourse vis-a-vis the pros and the cons.
Congressman, would you say that the House Prosecution Panel is prepared for all kinds of eventualities in this trial? I'm curious, during your mock trials, are you already anticipating possible hiccups to this impeachment process, including the possible inclusion of, let's say, hostile witnesses? Are the prosecutors prepared to handle witnesses who may become, let's say, uncooperative or maybe adverse during the questioning in the trial?
Well, the House prosecution team, part of the mock trial is to prepare themselves with any eventuality, how they will address, if, for example, in the event that there will be a sort of might happen, or any circumstance that does not actually go with how they were planned it to be. So there will be some there will be definitely approaches to address that, and they are preparing not just the presentation of evidences, but how, for example, how reactions might how reactions from either our sitting senators or the sitting senators would go. So definitely that is part of the preparation, that is part of the assessment that they are actually anticipating. I mean, the assessment on how the possible reactions or possible flow of the court would go. But definitely, we simply cannot just bank on eventualities. The House prosecution team is actually focused on the actual evidences that would be presented, and whether or not such reactions from different sitting senators is concerned. We are not in control of that. So we simply would like to present and would go forward whatever are the possible reactions or comments of the senator judges, because we do anticipate that there will also be comments, because that's precisely why they are there in the first place, to judge the evidences. So that's part of the things that the House prosecution team is considering. Although let me reiterate that the House prosecution team is focused on how to present evidences clearly, effectively, and effectively, and in a way that can be understood quite easily by the general public.
All right, and finally, Congressman, when it comes to the private prosecutors, have you finalized them already? I know Attorney Lorna Kapunan has been identified already publicly so far, but when can we expect the prosecution panel to finalize their list of private prosecutors? And what qualities are you looking for in the lawyers that may join the team?
So far, Pauline, they're still trying to, they haven't actually. Well, there are some private prosecutors that have already been decided to take part and be active, meaning to say they are now included as part of the prosecution team. But as to how many, and that is still being decided by the House prosecution team. Of course, there will be some sort of evaluation, if I may call it, in order that they can actually decide and determine the number of private prosecutors that will be welcome and be included in their list of prosecutors. So up to now, that is still being decided. There are a lot of lawyers, private lawyers, that have come up and approach the House prosecution team to offer their services pro bono to be part of the team. Although I cannot divulge to you how many and what are these legal authority, lawyers, but what I can tell you is still under process of deciding and evaluating the number, determine the number of private lawyers to be included in the team, and as well as who would be the composition of the private prosecution team.
Okay, well, we're going to have to watch out for that. But for now, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. That was Lanao del Sur Representative Zia Alonto Adyong. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Pauline. Good morning.
Do stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. You are still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Well, as we know, former Senate President Tito Sotto has denied allegations that senators discussed plans for a constitutional assembly or charter change, saying any related conversations were only casual exchanges during a dinner gathering. Soto clarified that he met with House Speaker Faustino D. III and several Gulf friends where the topic of regional Senate representation was briefly raised. But he stressed that no formal discussions nor agreements on constitutional amendments took place. In a privileged speech on Monday, Senator Amy Marcos spoke of alleged discussions involving minority senators on charter change, possible term extensions, and even no election scenarios. And now let us get more insights from UE Political Science Professor Eric De Torres. Good morning, Professor, and welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Pauline, and good morning to all the viewers of your program.
Okay, first of all, Professor, what was your reaction to Senator Amy Marcos's privileged speech yesterday and that video presentation alleging discussions on charter change, term extensions, and even a no election scenario?
Well, it was actually very surprising in such a way that the manner by which the good intention of charter change is again being painted as something that is, really negative. And with all the talks of charter change, and I for one has been advocating for it. The saddest thing about it is that it's being used for negative purposes, primarily for term extension and so on and so forth. So it's being if the situation would permit, the intention is quite good, but of course the manner by which how it will be used is if it is for term extension, it's really a sad day for all those who are advocating to push for charter change.
Per Professor, do you find the claims presented in that video presentation of Senator Amy Marcos as credible, or could it also be seen as politically motivated given all the tensions we are seeing right now?
Well, two things. For one, the way that we intend to look at it is that it's sort of a role playing on the part of Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano and Senator Amy Marcos, because you have to remember the context is that there's again the possibility and there are rumors that they will unseat SP Alan, but later on, I was actually observing the hearing, the plenary session yesterday, and then all of a sudden, Senator Amy dropped the bomb, and she had a video about the context by which eventually would all lead to a no election scenario, because apparently or allegedly Senator back then Soto was talking and discussing about charter change to House Speaker Boji D. So of course the manner by which we intend to look at it as such is that the overall video had basically an effect, and Senator Mig Zubiri stood up and all other the minority senators really making a strong motion to strike it out, and a very strong appeal to the Senate pro tempore to remove all because it's unparliamentary. And then later on you see Senator Alan Pitt as a compromise agreement, and then it seems that Senator Amy agreed to remove the video as to compromise of the whole situation with Senator Mix striking it out. So I think it's a clear case, and in my own perspective, a clear role playing so as to diffuse the situation and perhaps create an optics that Senator Alan can diffuse the situation from both ends of the minority and the majority bloc. Also, on the other hand, it's also addressing the elephant in the room, that if there is any scenario for that matter that they will really push for charter change, I hope it's not really within the wrong reasons of extending the term, but really changing the system for the betterment of the country for that matter.
Well, Professor, several minority senators really took offense from that video. Senator Mig Zubiri even described it as propaganda. Would you agree with his assessment, with how he described it?
Again, I'll refer back, Pauline, to the first argument that I had. That I think it's really, the manner by which the video was done was actually very, not really on exposing something, but it's really, and what Senator Rafi would say, that it's really how-show. Now, again, let's look at it from a perspective that was it really intentional that later on it would steer the emotions of the other minority bloc, and then later on Senator SP Alan would be there and diffuse the situation and so on and so forth, so as to create an optics, as what I have said, that he can basically manage both minority and majority bloc. So it's really a play or a master class of politics, if you may, in being able to maintain the status quo and maintain leadership again at the end of the day on the part of the Senate presidency.
Professor, do you think this is also being used as a diversionary tactic for more pressing issues that the Senate is facing right now?
Yes, that's also a third key consideration, that it's a diversionary tactic. What is really frustrating here, Pauline, is that there are lots of legislative agenda that's basically not being discussed oil price hike, how we intend to go about the inflation. And these are legislative agenda or legislative measures that needs to be taken care of, because the moment that you change Senate leadership, the committee chairpersons will also be changed. So that impedes basically lots of legislative agenda that is basically on the table. And considering that there are only few days remaining before the session, and then the impeachment is already in front of us, that will take much of the time of our senators. And you have to remember, there are only 5 senators who are actually lawyers, right? And the rest of the senators will have to do their homework in being able to study carefully in terms of the in terms of the evidences that will be presented to them. So it will take much of their time, at wala na namang magagawang trabaho, at kakainin na naman ng oras ng both chambers for this issue at hand.
Earlier, Professor, you mentioned that you're actually an advocate for charter change if done for the right reasons, for the right purposes. So ideally, how should the push for charter change go about, Professor?
Well, if you're going to ask me, CONAS is a very risky mode, though it is form part of the constitution, by which it's one of the mode that could actually change or amend the constitution. But more importantly, I think the formidable way should be a constitutional convention, right? Just like what happened during the 1987 development or creation of the 1987 constitution. So more importantly, if we are to do this and push for charter change, we have to do it right, and we have to do it for the right reasons. It's not really for term extension, but like say for example, look at and develop our electoral reforms. Look at our party list system. It becomes an extension already of the dynasties. Nobody would like to contest in the elections, because the election in the Philippines is very personality based. So you have to create basically a systemic reform for us to be able to create a new behavior for these political actors that has for many years have already mastered and identified the loophole of the current constitution that we have.
Well, Professor, tensions and emotions are still running really high among the senators. How significant would you say is the impact of these internal divisions on the Senate's credibility as an institution?
Well, of course, it's definitely all eyes on the part of the Senate today, and it seems that the posture of the senators yesterday, though after the break, there some of them are actually discussing with one another, but it's really head on. Talagang makikita natin na kumprontahan na on the part of the senators. So again, let's debate upon not just about issues that is political, but legislative in nature. As what I always say, less politics and more governance, right? And we need the upper chamber, the Senate for that matter, because at the end of the day, they will all of the things that are happening to them right now will also be a measure of their performance during the impeachment trial or impeachment proceedings. So we're really appealing on the part of the senators to set aside politics and really look into and be objective and look into their respective jobs as lawmakers for them to be able to tackle pressing issues, Pauline.
But right now, Prof, there are still persistent talks about a possible leadership change at the Senate. Now, in your view, would another leadership shakeup help stabilize the upper chamber, the Senate, or would it just further deepen the instability that we are already witnessing?
At this juncture, Pauline, it will not help. And what's the reason really for changing Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano? He only relatively has 2 weeks. So another leadership change will not really help. It will create more instability and risk as it is on the part of many investors. And more importantly, you need to have that legal lens on the part of the Senate President as basically the one who will be presiding the impeachment trial. So again, it's a battle of narrative, and I think we're appealing to for the Senate to be more of, instead of grandstanding, be a statesman in terms of their posture, their way of interacting with one another, na talagang yung highest degree of being a statesman and lawmaker that the country deserves, because they were voted basically. But more importantly also, Pauline, this is a reflection na sinisingil tayo ngayon on the part, on the kind of candidates that we actually have. So ito na yun the way that we intend to look at both chambers right now.
Well, the Senate right now, Prof, is also under pressure over investigations into alleged flood control anomalies and corruption issues involving sitting senators. But my question is, can the chamber still credibly investigate these allegations involving their own members?
Well, that's also the key consideration, Pauline. Most or some of those members on the Blue Ribbon Committee were actually involved in the alleged flood control. So again, it would steer again credibility on the part of the committee, and would inhibiting them help the situation, for them to be able to gain more credibility, or for example, for delicadeza purposes, I will not be member of the said committee simply because I have a pending issue or pending case. So it's again, at the end of the day, it's that delicadeza, and the more that they justified on their actions, the more that it creates negative perception on the part of the public.
Well, speaking of the Blue Ribbon Committee, Prof, when Senator Ping Lacson, the former chairman, stepped down, or when he left the committee, he left behind a so-called chairman's progress report on the alleged flood control anomalies, and he also recommended further investigation into several lawmakers. But now, Senator P. Cayetano chairs that committee. What would the implication be if they decide to abandon and set aside the earlier findings of Senator Ping Lacson?
I think in my perspective, it will not be abandoned, but rather I think and I'm just second guessing, but the direction of Senator Pia. But again, I think it will expand the manner by which the people involved get and invite more people involved for this. So I think there will be an in-depth discussion. I think what Senator Ping Lacson started is basically also a very good to start with. His efforts are very much appreciated. But again, on the part of the Filipino people and common people, we need to have closure with this, because it's really in-depth, ang lalim. It's like a web-like type like situation or scenario where a lot of people and a lot of agencies are actually involved. So we need an in-depth hearing and investigation with regard to this.
In your opinion, Prof, what needs to happen for the Senate to restore public confidence and institutional stability?
I think, Pauline, it's really more of really showing the Filipino people, first of all, their sincerity. We want to see an extra effort of not just always being political, but rather focusing on the right, task at hand, especially looking for ways and means on that legislative action in terms of, improving the quality of lives of the Filipino people. Less politics really, and start doing their job.
But Professor, at the same time, all these controversies are happening. 2026 so far has been quite turbulent politically. But how do you see all these developments shaping the political landscape leading up to 2028?
I think, Pauline, this is just the start. As we go along and as at the end of this year and as time goes by, this would really, be heated upon in terms of the polarization of the politicians in our country, but more importantly also on the part of the people. The saddest thing about it is that it's becoming very divisive on the part of the Filipino people. Politicians and leaders are very particular that, let's set aside it because, at the end of the day, I think once election is done or is finished, it's time for governance. But as all road leads to 2028, and especially with the impeachment trial coming, we could relatively see, the social media, and more importantly, Pauline, as a be calling upon the Filipino public, no, to be critical about the situation, because there will be narratives that will be floated upon. Various people would really, and with the advent of influencers in various social media platforms, it is imperative that the Filipino people be critical about what is really happening.
You said it best, Professor. Less politics, more governance. Hopefully, these calls won't fall on deaf ears. But for now, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. That was UE Political Science Professor Eric De Torres. Thank you, sir. Don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The Justice Department is holding a press conference this morning amid several major legal and political developments. And for the latest, let's bring in mobile journalist Arles De Los Santos. Arles, good morning. What are we expecting from the press conference of the DOJ today?
Pauline, ilang minuto pa lamang ang nakalilipas mula nga nang natapos ang press conference ni mismong DOJ, Acting Secretary Frederick Vida, kung saan nga ipinanawagan niya kay Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa na sumuko na lamang sa otoridad dahil bilang dating pinakamataas na opisyal ng Philippine National Police at may alam na kung paano nga ba sinisilbi at ginagalang ang arrest warrant na inilalabas ng mga korte, dapat daw na maging mas madali, or parang sumuko na lang siya para nga nang sa gayon mas maging mabilis yung proseso. Pero kabukod dyan, Pauline, ay kinumpirma rin ni Secretary Vida na nagbigay na nga ng liham ang DOJ para kay Attorney Jimmy Bondok na legal counsel nga ni Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa matapos nga yung umuugong na may alam ito sa kinaroroonan ni Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa nang sa gayon ay makatulong ito at maibigay ang impormasyon na kinakailangan ng DOJ para sa nagpapatuloy na isinasagawa nitong investigasyon. Ngayon din, Pauline, ay nagbigay ng update ang DOJ at nagbigay na rin nga ng mga liham sa iba pang mga ahensya ng pamahalaan, kagaya na lamang sa Senate Secretary kung saan hinihingi nga yung inventory ng firearms, yung issuance documents na sa mga officials and employees, maging yung mga activity logs na mga pumasok doon. Ito ay bilang bahagi ng kanilang isinasagawang investigasyon doon sa nangyaring barilan sa Senado mula pagitan ng May 11 to 13. Though yung barilan ay nangyari noong May 13, no? Nagsapina na rin sa PNP, particularly sa Firearms and Explosives Office para nga sa inventory din ng mga firearms ng Senate at yung mga ownership or particular firearms, lalo na yung Scorpion na tinatawag ng mataas na kalibre ng barel, no? Nakasama din doon sa mga ginamit umano sa nangyaring putukan sa Senado. Huli.
All right, thank you very much for that report. That was mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Meanwhile, search and rescue operations continue in Angeles City, Pampanga, following the collapse of a 9-story building under construction. The Bureau of Fire Protection confirmed that thermal scanning and life detection equipment picked up possible heartbeat indications in Sector 1, prompting rescuers to focus operations in that area. However, authorities warn that rain or shifting debris could force a temporary suspension of operations due to serious safety risks. Meanwhile, officials confirmed that one person previously listed as missing has been declared safe after it was verified that the individual was not on site during the incident.
Yung pong ating signs of life, hindi po natin masabi kung ilan, but ang ini-indicate po ng ating thermal images ay consistent po na may heartbeat na nade-detect doon sa area na yon. So, ang amin po ngayong focus is ma-reach po natin yung portion na yon na idinidictate ng ating thermal images. Sa amin po, hindi pa namin basta-basta nililimit. Makikita niyo po sa mga previous operation natin, may mga miracles po talaga na nandyan na hindi mo naasahan na 2 to 3 days meron pa pala tayong life. Kaya hindi pa po tayo basta-basta pwedeng bumigay.
And now for the latest on the weather, several areas across the country are expected to feel dangerous levels of heat today. Based on the heat index for May 26, Tuguegarao City, San Ildefonso in Bulacan, Camiling in Tarlac, Sangley Point in Cavite, San Jose in Occidental Mindoro, and Puerto Princesa City may hit 46 degrees Celsius. Dagupan City, Etiague in Isabela, Tanawan in Batangas, and Cuyo in Palawan may reach 45 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, Pasay City, Bacnotan in La Union, Casiguran Aurora, Iba Zambales, Muñoz Nueva Ecija, Pili Camarines Sur, Rojas City, and Iloilo City may also feel heat index levels of 44 degrees. The public is advised to limit outdoor activities, to stay hydrated, and to watch out for signs of heat exhaustion. A new partnership between MWell and Asian Hospital aims to boost digital healthcare services in the Philippines. More details in this report.
Good news for digital healthcare. MWell by Metro Pacific Health Tech Corporation and Asian Hospital and Medical Center officially signed their partnership contract last Friday, May 22. The collaboration aims to provide a seamless, accessible, and patient-centered care through innovation led by MWell.
I think it's the progressive nature that we both have in common, right? We're always looking for different solutions to make things easier for patients to access us. The systems that their MWell is offering, wow, makes life so much simpler. We can integrate all of that information with our own hospital records. That would make life so much simpler for patients.
Some services of Asian Hospital that are now available in MWell app are executive health screenings, physical checkups, and even vaccination that you can easily book via the app.
Connectivity with patients is something we are really looking forward to. Making sure that our patients know how to navigate, come to the hospital, book their appointments, get their laboratory tests done at the easiest and most efficient way.
We also have a lot of hospital platforms, hospital care platforms and solutions. And we're really looking for progressive hospitals like Asian Hospital, part of our family, to pilot what we have. They really welcome digitalization as part of their push to improve their health outcomes and also to improve the doctor experience and patient experience.
Despite numerous alliances in the healthcare industry, MWell President and CEO echoed Asian Hospital's robotic radiotherapy for cancer as one of its edge for partnership. Asian Hospital houses the first and only cyberknife advanced treatment in the country.
Asian Hospital also has the one and only cyberknife equipment for cancer care, no? And MWell also has cancer care app solution within our app, and that's called HealthPal. And we would also like to pilot that for cancer care and chronic care, so that Asian Hospital will be able to better take care and uh, support their patients. Para yung part of that will be the mga reminders for medications, top up for medicines, ganyan, on a digital way.
With the new partnership, both organizations are committed to expand digital and quality care in the Philippines. Kapatid Ray Vicente, we are One News.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Kapatid, we are One News. All sides, all the time.